Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, NetSuite for the Service Industry, the PSA Blueprint. My name is Rebecca, and I'm a marketing manager here at Appficiency. Thanks so much for joining us today. Let's jump into what we'll be covering. Today we'll cover an overview of Appficiency and our software division, Snap-on Software. We'll define agency, media, professional services organizations and highlight some of their common pain points. And then we'll introduce to you Appficiency's solution, specifically our golden flow for PSA. And finally, the team will walk you through a demo to help you visualize some of these solutions. Before we begin, here are a few quick housekeeping items. The webinar today will be about 60 minutes, including introduction and Q&A. The session is being recorded, and we will share the recording with you afterwards. And then please, if you have any questions during the webinar, just enter them in the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll have time at the end to get to those. Let's take a moment to introduce our wonderful speakers for today's webinar. First, we have Ishan. Ishan joined Appficiency in 2018 after working with NetSuite Professional Services. He was one of the first consultants on our AMP vertical, and he's successfully led over 30 NetSuite implementations for our clients. Next is Ayman. Ayman joined our team in 2022, and he quickly became a key contributor. With over 12 years of experience and 8 years in consulting for enterprise software, he specializes in helping service and construction organizations scale efficiently. Joining us as well is Rohan. Rohan has 2 years of experience with NetSuite implementation and project management. He's a NetSuite certified Suite Foundation professional. We're also joined by Paulo. Paulo is a certified public accountant with more than 5 years of experience in NetSuite implementation and support. He's certified across ERP, Suite Foundations, administration, Suite Analytics, and financials. And finally, we have Neville. Nev is our Certinia solution architect with over 20 years of consulting experience. He's an expert in Salesforce CRM, Certinia PSA, and revenue management, having delivered more than 100 successful projects for organizations ranging from SMEs to large enterprises. With this powerhouse team of experts, we're very excited to dive into today's session. But firstly, I'd like to introduce you to Appficiency, who we are, what we do. We are a premier NetSuite Alliance partner, bringing you solutions to implement and extend the NetSuite platform for complex businesses. Appficiency is your trusted SDN and Alliance partner, known specifically for job costing and deep industry expertise. In 2024, we won the Alliance Partner Spotlight Award for a standout implementation in the AMP vertical. Snap-on Software is our sister company dedicated to creating tools that extend NetSuite and other platforms. Now I'd like to hand it over to Ishan to define agency, media, professional service organizations.
Thank you, Rebecca, and welcome to all of the attendees today who can join us for our webinar. Before we get into the demo for today, I wanted to first start by framing the landscape that we're focused on for today's conversation, which is AMP. There have been different iterations of how AMP is described. However, at Appficiency, the definition of AMP basically stands for agency, media, and professional services, as opposed to advertising, media, and publishing, which traditionally is the acronym. So these three subverticals represents a broad range of companies, each with unique business models and operational needs. And I'll quickly describe what each one of these subverticals really does in terms of their footprint. Under agency, we typically work with organizations offering creative services, which can include promotional marketing, ad design, merchandising, marketing services such as outsourced campaign management, SEO, and web services. Media covers mostly media and ad placement, including digital media buying, job board placements, traditional media like newspaper, radio, out-of-home advertising. It also includes some marketing services similar to agencies, but more focused on the delivery of the ads itself. Lastly, the professional services space, we can basically support companies that offer mostly consulting services. So think about it as accounting firms, B2B e-commerce organizations, public relations companies, or engineering advisory companies. as well as software and services products-based companies that include subscription-based billing software service companies, recruiters, telecom providers, and real estate firms. Across all these types of organizations, there is a unifying theme, which is the complexity of managing products, resources, and revenue, often across multiple lines of business and delivery models. That's exactly where our expertise and NetSuite solutions really come into play, and that's what we're going to be demonstrating throughout this session today. If we look at the landscape, essentially, we basically want to take a closer look at what the different companies are described as, and more importantly, what they need. There are certain characteristics that we want to basically focus on today, and whether if it's a creative agency or a digital media placement firm or professional services provider, AMP companies usually share a few common essential traits. For example, they all deliver intangible services like creative work, strategy, media buying. They also operate on a project-based revenue model for the most part, and their billing cycles often rely on time-based allocations, tracking, and milestone-based revenue. They also manage high level of operational complexity across multiple clients, campaigns, and internal teams. These characteristics lead to specific operational needs like accurate resource planning, real-time project profitability and visibility, streamlined delivery and billing, and scalable systems, which basically allow them to reduce manual work. That's where our ProjectSOS solution really comes into play. We've tailored our delivery methodology and offerings to specifically cater to these key challenges. Some of the identifiers that point to a good fit for our ProjectSOS solutions basically include a reliance on project-based work or campaign delivery, the need for job costing and job planning, complex and varied billing models, and industry-oriented tools like Gantt chart, capacity planners, utilization tracking, and so on. So in short, ProjectSOS was built to give AMP companies better control over their operations, tighter visibility into planning and execution, and financial visibility into their needs as they scale. Now, if we move to the next slide, basically what we wanted to show here is that over the years, we've worked with numerous agencies that run into similar operational hurdles. These include managing complex project structures, integrating disparate systems, and staying on top of billing and profitability. Here are some of the common pain points that we've addressed and how ProjectSOS solves for them. A lot of times we see that AMP companies usually manage multiple estimates, multiple sales orders under a single contract. Our consolidated invoicing functionality helps them streamline this by bundling sales orders into fewer, more manageable invoices. Data management across multiple systems is also a key challenge that we overcome very, very regularly. And we've developed solutions and integrations over hundreds of custom and standard implementations that allow different systems to seamlessly communicate with NetSuite, enabling a unified data flow. Tracking budgets versus actuals by cost category is also a need that not a lot of systems out there solve. Our job costing solution enables project managers to monitor performance and spending by cost category on a monthly basis, keeping delivery aligned with the budget. Revenue recognition and cost alignment are often issues that are also brought up. We worked on key automations involving month-end close process to ensure accurate, scalable, and margin-aligned reporting around these needs. Manual vendor billing and high payment processing costs are very common across advertising agencies. We've tailored NetSuite's powerful P2P infrastructure with billing and payment workflows and integrations to reduce this effort, lower fees, and improve cash flows. So each of these is tailored to the way AMP companies operate, which are fast-paced, project-heavy, and built on complex workflows. ProjectSOS is designed to simplify and optimize all of that. Now, what I wanted to do was just explain the concept of what we basically call internally as a golden flow. In our experience, we have seen that at the heart of every successful implementation is a clear understanding of how a business truly operates, not just today, but as they scale and evolve. That's where the concept of our golden flow really comes into play. A golden flow basically represents end-to-end life cycles of form, transactions, data, and user touchpoints, essentially capturing the full cradle-to-grave journey of a business activity within your ERP system. This framework isn't theoretical. It's derived from hundreds of real-world customer journeys, across industries like agency, media, and professional services. And it ensures that we're always starting with best practices in mind, especially revolving around core processes. Now, why does this matter? Well, it ensures the completeness of both sales to process and operations to payment cycles. It helps users and businesses validate the business model at go live and adapts as the businesses grow. It also provides a scalable backbone for long-term financial and operational efficiencies. In short, the golden flow is our blueprint for delivering ERP success and the foundation that informs every ProjectSOS implementation as we deliver. Now that we've introduced the golden flow as a framework, let's take a look at what it looks like in action. We like to visualize this as a standard data highway, which basically is the backbone of your core ERP processes, such as order to cash, procure to pay, work codes, AP, and time tracking. And this stays consistent across most of the implementations that we see. What makes this really powerful is the flexibility to accommodate business-specific needs through what we call on-ramps and off-ramps, which you can see towards the left side of this presentation. These represent entry and exit points that can be tailored based on industry or client-specific operations. For example, an agency would have an on-ramp that might be importing project-based budgets from an external planning tool. For media companies, it could involve integrating campaign performance metrics into project actuals. Off-ramps might include customized outputs like bank files, consolidated utilization reports, or even integrations to BI dashboards and BI tools. On the right side of this slide, you can see how this flows into actual system objects and transaction records. So these include familiar objects like estimates, budgets, purchase orders, item fulfillments, invoicing, and payments, all interconnected. So while every client's path is unique, the structure with which we implement is repeatable, scalable, and rooted in proven procedures. And that's what allows us to move fast, but without compromising on flexibility or control. Before we get into our demo, I like to present on the next slide a very typical business process map that we like to deliver for agency type of organization. Now, this map is a little small to read, but we have a video that helps us pan through it from top to bottom. Now, as we pan through this end-to-end process flow, you'll see that a modern agency operates across sales, delivery, resource planning, and financial management. At the top, everything begins with Salesforce, for example, where leads and qualified opportunities are tracked through contract proposals. And from there, our workflow shifts to project scoping and estimation, which feeds into planning and PSA analysis. For project management, we leverage Certinia, the best-in-class PSA that provides a familiar yet powerful experience for project managers with features like task scheduling, resource planning, utilization reporting, all designed with delivery teams in mind. This allows us to maintain a seamless continuity as we move along resource allocation, time tracking, billing events, with NetSuite servicing as the robust financial engine in the background. By integrating Certinia with NetSuite, we're not replacing NetSuite's project infrastructure, but enhancing it with the strengths of each system. For example, Certinia for the intuitive project planning and execution, and NetSuite for project-based budgeting, accounting, billing, and financial consolidation. It's this hybrid architecture that allows us to deliver an optimized end-to-end solution that works across all departments from sales to delivery to finance, all on a single connected backbone. And with this, I'm very excited to share some demos that we've basically encompassed across all the different implementations we've done, specifically around different billing types that we see through most of our implementations. So I'll hand over to Ayman to walk us through some of these use cases in action.
All right, thank you so much, Ishan. So in today's demo, we'll cover 3 different project types, and I will start with fixed bid. Next slide, please. So a fixed bid project is also called the fixed price project and is a type of contract where the service provider agrees to deliver a specific scope of work for a set price, regardless of the time or resources it actually takes to complete the project. So in a simple terms, the client pay one agreed upon price for the entire project, no matter what happened during the deployment. So the assumption here, or the keys, is pre-agreed budget at a fixed timeline. Invoicing is done on a monthly basis based on a predefined schedule. Time and expenses doesn't affect the billing, but actually we use it to track it internally for reporting purposes. Revenue recognition, either it's a streamline over the contract period, or based on a project percentage or cost percentage of complete. So in our scenario today, we're going to use revenue recognition based on project cost percentage of complete. So next slide, please. So let's start with the relationship between Oracle NetSuite and Certinia. So on the left side, this is the process in Certinia, and on the right side, this is the process in Oracle NetSuite. So when the project is awarded, Certinia begins the process of creating a new project record with the associated tasks. Then in Certinia, you can use the project task assignment and resource allocation. The project with the associated task will be integrated into Oracle NetSuite to begin creating the sales order and the billing schedule for invoicing. Back to Certinia. While the project is running, the resources will start creating timesheet and expenses. And after it gets approved in Certinia, this information will be integrated into Oracle NetSuite as an approved timesheets and approved expense report. Then on the right side here, one of the most beautiful solution added to NetSuite by Appficiency is called ProjectSOS. And I just want to mention that ProjectSOS solution is not built for a specific project type or a specific industry. It's a comprehensive and very adaptable solution. So either you are in professional services, agency, construction, or manufacturing, the ProjectSOS solution adapts your unique requirement, helping you to stay competitive in a fast-changing market. So we'll see later in the demo how ProjectSOS solution will capture all of the revenue and cost transaction for all of the project and provide lots of reports to help the project managers to stay on the top of the budget and make decisions. Now I will hand it over to Nev to demonstrate Certinia, then I will take it from there.
Thanks, Simon. I'm going to just before I quickly dive into the actual detail, I will talk about just reiterate what Ishan was saying. So using Certinia PSA allows us to combine you provide a powerful integrated solution for AMP type businesses. Certinia streamlines the project management element with resource allocation, as well as the time expense tracking, while NetSuite handles the financial management, accounting, and reporting. This integration allows us for both better visibility into project profitability and improved resource utilization. So on our fixed bid monthly project, what we have is the actual details that are going to be passed through into NetSuite. So the project ID, the project name you can see here is fixed bid monthly, and our fixed billing type is fixed price. It's also going to show the currency in Canadian dollars, and we'll also see some of the details here. So we're passing through the bookings value, which is noted here in Certinia. What you also see is that we've allocated some resources onto this project, which are set up in this Gantt chart. This can be in a task board setup, so you can see some have been started in this particular one, or in a task list. We also have the time that has been entered on this particular project in terms of time cards. So you can see there, none of the time is billable, but you can see all the hours that have been submitted on this particular one. Now I'll pass it back to Ayman to show this information in the NetSuite side.
Yep, thank you so much, Nev. I hope everyone can see my screen. Okay, so in NetSuite, as previously mentioned, the project will be automatically integrated from Certinia. This eliminates the manual work of recreating the project, saving valuable time and effort. The integrated project will retain the same project number, name, and the associated customer as in Certinia. Additionally, if you scroll down, within the project record in NetSuite, you will find the project tasks along with their planned hours have also been seamlessly integrated from Certinia. Now, once the project is integrated into NetSuite, the next step is to create the estimate. So using Appficiency solution, you can estimate the project revenue based on the number of hours for each resource role against each task of the project. With that, not just the project revenue will be automatically calculated, but also the project budget will be automatically calculated based on the cost of the resource roles assigned to the project. And since this is a fixed bid project, we can define a billing schedule based on the project timeline, and that will streamline the invoicing process to make sure that the invoices are generated on time to the client. So going back to the project, under Financial tab, and here is ProjectSOS solution will take a place to provide lots of analysis report to help the project manager to stay on the top of the budget and always keep an eye on the project's profitability. So as previously mentioned, the estimate will calculate the project total revenue and total cost. And that will be automatically captured in the project record under SOS number 1 for total revenue and SOS number 2 for total budget. With that, we can easily calculate the project forecasted margin and also forecasted margin percentage. And in terms of the cost or the project cost, here you can monitor the project total cost broken down into multiple cost categories. Subcontractor cost, if you are hiring a subcontractor for a specific scope of work, actual labor cost. Because of the resource, timesheets will be integrated from Certinia to NetSuite. ProjectSOS can easily calculate the labor cost based on the integrated timesheets. Same for expenses. Because expense report will be integrated from Certinia to NetSuite, you can still track the expenses as a part of the actual cost. And since we have since we have the total budget and total actual cost to date, ProjectSOS solution can easily calculate the budget percentage of complete, not just for the whole project, but also on a monthly basis. And that will be used to automatically recognize the revenue based on the cost percentage of complete. You can see all of this beautiful report and analysis, not just as a numbers, but also in a beautiful graph. And it's a dynamic graph, so you can run it on a specific period, and that will update all of the graphs. Now, I will hand it over to Rohan to start talking about the material projects.
Perfect. Thank you, Ayman. And if we could head to the next slide, please. This next use case we want to cover is probably the most common when it comes to professional services agencies, which is time and material projects. Time and material projects are very common among law firms, marketing and advertising agencies, and business and IT consulting firms, where the time spent on a project and the expenses incurred is what is charged to the client. Now, generally, these clients will engage in a T&M contract with the service provider when the scope of work can fluctuate. These types of contracts can span from a few months to years at a time, and with this, the billing frequency can vary. Now, based on the resources being utilized, they will generally have a rate card associated with their role. For example, a senior content creator may have a different chargeable rate than a UX designer, or a paralegal might have a different chargeable rate than a senior counsel. The rate card of resources and the billing frequency are usually agreed upon before a project commences work, in what is known as a statement of work or a contract. An external PSA tool, such as Certinia, allows us to have the flexibility in deciphering the applicable rate for a specific resource. Some projects may have project-specific rates, some projects may have contract-specific rates, and some other projects may have general rate cards which the company uses. This flexibility is a very common need for agency firms. And revenue recognition in time and material projects are always or usually recognized upon billing. So if we head to the next slide, we'll be able to see a golden flow of T&M use cases. Thank you. So in this case, we have Certinia, and of course, with Certinia, we would have Salesforce be our CRM of choice. Once a client has gone through the entire CRM process and they have closed an estimate, a project will be created in Certinia. This project will include project task assignments, and resource allocations. Now, when this project is created in Certinia, an integration sync will be triggered, which will create the same project and project tasks within NetSuite. Time will be entered by the resources on the project within Certinia, as well as expense reports. And similarly, an integration flow will be triggered once the time and expenses are approved in Certinia to be replicated within NetSuite against that project. Utilizing these time entries and expense reports, we can create invoices in NetSuite. And along with this, on the project record, we can use our ProjectSOS solution to identify some key markers on the project which help users have a quick snapshot of the project's health and metrics. Now we'll cover a sample use case where Appficiency has engaged in a T&M contract with Acme Corporation, and we'll show you both the project in Certinia and in NetSuite. To start off, I'll hand it off to Nev to run through the Certinia portion of this use case.
All right. Thanks, Rohan. So we've got a similar scenario. So we're in this time it's professional services T&M. This is the name of our project, and this is a billing type of time materials, as Rohan mentioned. So some of the details that you'll see again being passed over are very similar: start and end date, the currencies, the customer Acme Corporation. We have additional information, so summary reports, summary cards here that can be used in terms of project management and an overview for whoever's running the project. So costs and projected and some of the actuals that are on this particular project, high level KPIs, if you like. What we also have is basically a similar setup again. So the requirements, the tasks that are being performed, which can be seen in different ways. The time cards that have been submitted. So Brian would have mentioned the different rates would have been applied to each one. So you can see there the hours times a bill rate would give different sort of billable amounts for each of these time cards. We also have expenses on this particular project, which would be then also put in as a pass-through to the customer. So these are then synced over to NetSuite to drive that functionality. What we also have as part of the core Certinia rollout is some of the scheduling capacity planning for each of the resources. So in this case, we can see how the planning has worked out for each of these resources. And then finally, the item that links to the NetSuite side, which is the billing event. So that's then synced back to create those billing items in NetSuite. So I will then now pass it back over to Rohan to complete the rest of the use case in NetSuite.
Perfect. All right. So heading into NetSuite, the first thing we want to look at is the project record. And now usually when the integration creates a project record, we'll bring in some key header level fields. So we can see the job ID is the same as what we had in Certinia. We also have the name of the project, in this case, Professional Services T&M, which is also the same as what we had within Certinia. We can see the customer is the same, Acme Corporation, and this project is in progress. If we scroll down to the schedule where we can see the different project tasks, you'll be able to see we'll have the same 3 project tasks: requirements, configuration, and testing. Now, once this project has been synced into NetSuite and then resources have started to enter time in Certinia, and those time entries have been approved, those time entries will then come into NetSuite. So if we head under the resources tab, we'll be able to see all the time entries that have come into NetSuite. And if we take a look at one of these time entries, we can take a look at some of the fields here. So in this case, this time entry is for Susan Boss. It's tagged against that same project, Acme Corporation Professional Services T&M. It's tagged against the correct task that we had in Certinia as well. And the service item is the one that we chose within Certinia as well. Now, one thing to note here is this is a billable time entry, and the price level has been set to custom. And the reason for that is because the rate card that we select within Certinia will need to have a custom price level on the time entry in order for us to reflect the correct rate. Now, moving on from the time entry, once expenses are approved within Certinia, they will also flow into NetSuite. So this is a sample of an expense that we have. This expense is by Bob Levis for $1,000. Similarly, we can see that it's been tagged to the same project as well, and it's a billable expense. So with both the time and expenses coming into NetSuite from Certinia, we can head to the invoice that's been created. And this invoice we can see is for $62,200. We have our 2 lines of the expenses that have been synced from Certinia, as well as each one of the rate card lines for each applicable resource, which reflects all of the time entries. Now, if we go back to the project record, under the Financial tab, we can use our ProjectSOS solution to identify some of the key markers that we would want to see on the project record. So we can see we have our invoice time entries amount, which takes the amount of all the time entries that have been added to an invoice. Any of the time entries which have been synced into NetSuite but are pending billing would show up under this field here. We have our revenue and then our actual labor cost, which is calculated by taking our resource rate multiplied by the duration of the time entry of that resource. We also have our sub-consultant costs, and this would accumulate if we had any vendor bills that were being added and tagged against this project, as well as expenses. And then to roll everything up, we have the final profit and loss on the project here as well. Using these ProjectSOS fields here, we can also generate multiple reports. With this, I'll hand it over to Paulo to go ahead and cover the Milestone use case.
And if we can show the slides again for the Milestone progress. Okay. Yeah, milestone progress is another type of fixed fee project where an agreed upon price is determined at the start of the project. It is a billing approach often used in relatively longer or more complex projects, particularly those involving implementation, consulting, or service delivery, where work is divided into multiple different phases or milestones. So each milestone represents a significant chunk of progress and usually has a predefined invoice amount and cost budget that is attached to it. There will also be an estimate dates for each milestone, but ultimately, for this use case, it will not be billed until the milestone is completed. So for revenue recognition, so it's usually not based on the milestones as run for like multiple months, while we need to recognize the revenue monthly. So for that reason, the revenue recognition for this use case is usually based upon a percent complete of the project. The percent complete can be automatically calculated using our project SOS tool, but it can also be manually entered by project managers. So if we go over into the next slide, we should be able to see high-level flowchart of a milestone progress use case. So this is mostly similar to the previous two use cases that were presented on this webinar, but essentially the main difference would be that the projects in Certinia will have a milestones that is attached to it. So on each milestone, there is an invoice amount and the cost budget that is defined on a particular milestone. This is then carried over into NetSuite as a project and project milestones. So in NetSuite, there is also an estimate and sales order created. The sales order will essentially serve as the contract for the project and will be later used for revenue recognition as well as invoicing purposes. So once a milestone has been completed, users can mark it in Certinia as completed and generate a billing event. The billing event will then trigger the billing process in NetSuite, essentially creating an invoice. So for this particular use case, the time entries and the expense reports will still be created in NetSuite and sync over into NetSuite. They are not being used for invoicing purposes. They are important for reporting purposes. So I think with that, I'll hand it over to Nev to show the use case in Certinia before we go over into NetSuite.
Awesome. Thanks, Paulo. Okay, so our final use case, as Paulo's just mentioned there, is a fixed price milestone type. So again, in this case, Certinia marks this as a fixed price billing type. Sorry. We can see again, similar to all the other use cases, all the details of the account being the client, the currency that is being used, some of the sort of financials as well. What's slightly different on this setup, obviously, as Paolo mentioned, is that we're using the milestone element to set up and drive the billing side of things as a fixed fee. So we can see there project kickoff milestone have been completed earlier in the year. And what that looks like is a record like this in Certinia. So we can see we planned an hour, we've got 2 hours submitted. There is a budget amount against it that he mentioned there. So you can see some of the date information against that. It's been approved and completed. What we also have, similar to all the other ones, so again, a few tasks that these can be set up as a Gantt. We can see there that we've got some assigned resources against those particular tasks. And finally, we have those time cards that have been submitted, which will, once approved, which they are then turn into a billing event. And on this billing event, what you'll see there is that we can then link that back to NetSuite, and then that then sort of can be driven on the NetSuite side. So this is the sort of final stage within Certinia that pushes the billing information to NetSuite. And with that, I will pass it back over to Paolo.
All right. Thank you much, Nev. So now heading over into the into NetSuite. So the first thing that we see here is the project record that is created from Certinia. So you can see some basic level information here. We have the job ID, we have the name, project manager, the status, and if we scroll, very important since this milestone progress project. So we can see all the milestones that are generated from Certinia, right? So we have the name of the milestone, the status, if it's completed, not started, or in progress. We have the dates, milestone ID from Certinia as well. We also have Certinia milestone amount, budget amount, and planned hours. Okay. If we scroll up down here, we can see that the estimate and the sales order is very neatly tagged to the project, right? So users should be able to, see them very easily. If we go over the estimate, so essentially the estimate is gonna be used for just budgeting purposes. If you want to track the actual versus budget, per milestone. Okay. So if you go over the sales order, we can see one line for each specific milestone. So this is so we can track which milestones are already billed and which milestones are still unbilled. We can also notice here that we have used the quantity instead of the rate to enter the actual invoice amount. So this is essentially if we have like later on, if we have like change orders to this sales order by using the quantity, we can make sure that we can still create an additional invoice for essentially the delta amount. And we can also see here that for each line, the milestones are tagged here. So this is because for reporting purposes, if the milestones are tagged on each line, we can very easily create an actual versus budget later on. And since we're tagging it to the estimate order later on, if we do an invoice against the sales order, the milestone will also be tagged on the line. Okay. So in when the milestones are completed, it is marked by the users as completed and they generate a billing event. So essentially that triggers the billing process in NetSuite, which creates an invoice in NetSuite. So we can see here the sample invoice that is created from a billing event in Certinia. We can see all the details are similar here. A Certinia billing event is tagged here for tracking purposes, and we can see the first milestone is invoice here for an amount of $1,000. So since we are using percent complete for revenue recognition, so essentially this invoice initially goes to deferred revenue. And then if we go back to the project record under financial, we can tag here the percent complete of the project. So for this one, we have two options. So our ProjectSOS tool can automatically calculate it, based upon certain formulas, or we can also just, manually add the percent complete for the project. On this example, we have the first period, June 2025, 10%. So we can see here that the the revenue recognized is 4,900, which is 10% of the total sales amount. Also highlighting that how the project SOS can be, very helpful, as we can see all the project metrics in one glance. Right. So that is the end-to-end process for Milestone Progress use case. So we'll now hand it over to Rebecca for some closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Paolo. So as we've seen today, NetSuite is an incredibly powerful financial platform. It's robust, reliable, and designed for precision. But for agencies, the challenge often lies in adapting to a system that feels more structured and less intuitive compared to the flexible drag and drop tools they may be used to. So this is where Certinia comes in. Built specifically for professional services automation, Certinia bridges that gap by adding the flexibility and project-centric features that agencies need, obviously without sacrificing the financial strength of NetSuite. So together, today we saw how NetSuite and Certinia creates a synergy, a streamlined end-to-end solution that covers both financial control and project delivery seamlessly. So I invite you to engage us in a demo. We'd love to show you how our solutions can specifically serve your agency, media, or professional services organization. Please direct any direct inquiries or client conversations to prospects@appficiencyinc.com or visit our website at appficiency.com for additional information about our options for agency, media, and professional service organizations. I hope that you gained some great knowledge from today's presentation and that the walkthroughs served you well. So now I'd like to open the floor for any questions. The team is all here in the background, so we'd love to answer any questions that you might have. Let me open up the Q&A box. So we have a question. What happens if a milestone changes mid-project? Can the system adapt easily? I'll open the floor to our team, see who wants to answer that one first.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Paul, you want to take that one? You can go ahead.
For sure. So we have two options for that one. So number one, we can create a new sales order for the change order. If, for example, we're adding additional scope against the project, right? And then the second option, so the sales order is still editable. So if we update the milestone for whatever is the updated amount based on the requirement, then we can also update the sales order. So that is essentially why we have used, it's mentioned on the demo, that is why we have used the quantity instead of the rate to enter the invoice amount. So essentially, if even if you already invoiced the milestone, then we can still create an additional invoice for the delta amount.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Just going to say on the Certinia side, you could just exactly do the same, update the amounts or create an additional milestone to reflect any changes needed. So yeah, you do the similar mirrored step, if you like, in the Certinia element.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Next question we have is, can you give a real world example of an AMP company you've worked with? I think we've got
sorry. Yeah, I could
Lost.
probably jump in for that. Yeah, there's numerous examples, especially across all the different micro verticals of AMP companies that we work with. Ranging from media, professional services, agency, we pretty much covered it all. I think the most recent one that we can talk about is basically a company out of Australia that is part of an engineering consulting services landscape. They had a pretty disparaged system architecture across PSA, tools that they were using offline. And then, of course, they were doing their accounting pretty manually. So they wanted something that could streamline not just their job costing portion, but also the estimation portion. So on top of having NetSuite and Certinia, executing both of those functions, we also had NSPB, which we also deliver and implement, which catered to their planning and budgeting needs on a project level. At that granular level. So essentially, we took care of the entire gamut of all the different systems that they were working with. And now they have a very, very efficient system, pretty much closing their books in about a couple of weeks. And their project planning stage and the estimation stage went from, about 3 to 4 weeks to get them up and running to down to 1 week, because all the systems are talking to one another. So I think that's the most recent example. And if you'd like to share, or if you'd like us to share some more customer stories, definitely reach out to our prospects team, and we can definitely share some more live examples and some demos around that as
Exactly.
well.
Adding to this, Ishan, we have one of the biggest customers in I think in Canada and US. It's called Nelco. Nelco also, it has 3 different verticals. They are working AMP, construction, manufacturing, and they are currently using ProjectSOS to handle all of the 3 different verticals in one project record.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you both. One more question here. What's the biggest advantage of having time and expenses flow automatically from Certinia into NetSuite?
Yeah, I can answer this question, Ishan. So one of the biggest advantages here is for tracking the cost and tracking the profitability of the project, because some project it's not about only revenue and invoicing, but also you need to know how much you spend as a labor cost and expenses and also subcontractor cost for each project. And that will give you lots of reports and lots of analysis. As I mentioned, you may need to see your progress in terms of the cost, how much we burn so far, and what is the profitability for the project based on the cost versus revenue.
Exactly. And just to kind of key off of what Ayman just mentioned, one big requirement that we see is how to do revenue recognition based on this project progress. So that's where our material job costing product really comes into play, because not only does it automate the planning and job costing functionality, but it also allows us to do revenue recognition pretty much automatically in terms of deriving the project progress as those time entries are entered in Certinia and flows directly into NetSuite.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, with that, are there any more questions? If
I
not,
think there's one that I see here. If someone's not sure which billing model they fit into, T&M versus Milestone, how do they usually go about it? How do we usually guide them? So that's actually a pretty important question that we usually like to get straightened out in the early part of the project, especially when we're doing requirements and when we're doing design, is to first go ahead and iron out each single use case that a business has and basically tailor them to what is going to fit into not just their billing model, but also their revenue recognition model. So this is going to be dependent on the type of data that the client is working with, but essentially a T&M model would specifically fit to customers that are basically doing monthly billing, and they want tighter controls as to how much they're billing the client and how much cost they want to essentially accrue on the project. So that's where T&M billing comes into play, whereas Milestone would basically be something that's a little more fixed and rigid in terms of what they're billing their customer, and the time entries basically just service the cost portion of the project. So that's one big delimiter that we usually utilize in order to find out what billing model they fit into. And there's, of course, like a lot of conversation around the flexibility of billing, how much control they need. All of those will fit into, the whole communication around this use case.
perfect. Thank you, Ishan. All right, with that, I will close out the webinar for today. Thank you everyone for joining us. And again, if you have any questions, if you'd like to talk through any of your specific use cases, our team is happy to walk you through a demo, discuss some of your pain points, and see how Appficiency and Snap-on software can support you best. So again, thank you for your time today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.